Hello, and welcome to the virtual edition of Managing at HomeAway. My name is Kylie Robin, and I am a Learning and Development Specialist, and I will be walking you through today's agenda. First, we'll begin with a deep dive into HomeAway's leadership philosophy. Then we'll discuss role expectations as you transition from an individual contributor, a peer, or even an external manager to HomeAway's management style of leadership. Then we'll discuss agile leadership. And lastly, we'll cover key policies, processes, and systems that you may encounter as a manager. Let's begin by looking at HomeAway's leadership philosophy. HomeAway's leadership philosophy is rooted in the concepts of Level 5 leadership, and our company's success requires that our leaders inspire staff to serve our clients and colleagues with excellence by modeling, teaching, and upholding our cultural values in our daily decisions and actions. Level 5 leadership comes from the book Good to Great by Jim Collins. In his book, Collins tries to answer the question, can a good company become a great company? And if so, how? The book is a compilation of 5 years' worth of research and empirical data based on successful and not so successful public companies. He found that the common denominator to every great company is their leadership, more specifically, that their leaders display a very powerful mixture of personal humility and indomitable will. As we look at the Level 5 leadership pyramid, we can see it begins with the highly capable individual who makes productive contributions through talent, knowledge, skills, and good work habits. This is followed by the contributing team member, someone who contributes their individual capabilities to the achievement of the group objectives and works effectively with others in a group setting. Then we move to the competent manager who organizes people and resources towards the effective and efficient pursuit of predetermined objectives. Level 4, the effective leader, catalyzes commitment to and vigorous pursuit of a clear and compelling vision, stimulating higher performance standards. And the top of the pyramid is executive or Level 5 leadership. This individual builds enduring greatness through a paradoxical blend of personal humility and professional will. It's very important to note that one does not need to be at an executive level from a hierarchical perspective to achieve Level 5 leadership. In fact, the attributes of Level 5 leadership can be practiced and employed at any level within an organization. Now we'll watch a quick video of Jim Collins explaining the difference between Level 4 and Level 5.
Good to Great, as many of you know, we discovered the idea of the Level 5 leader, one blessed with a paradoxical blend of personal humility. That's the X factor of great leadership, personal humility with an utterly indomitable will. But the deep inner essence of Level 5 is the idea of service, of leading in service to a cause. We are talking here about ambition. Towering, exhausting, relentless, non-stop ambition. Channel outward, away from yourself, into a cause, into an enterprise, into a purpose, into something that is bigger and more important than we are. See, ego-driven Level 4 leaders, they're really good at inspiring people to follow them. The Level 5 leaders inspire people to follow a cause. And therein is all the difference. Good to Great.
When we review HomeAway's values, it's very easy to see where there are links between HomeAway's core values and Level 5 leadership. Take a moment to review our values and think about how they tie to level 5 leadership, and how, as a manager, you could create trusted behaviors that exemplify level 5 leadership through the values. Now let's move into how these two critical components of leadership are the cornerstones for an effective transition to people management at HomeAway. Role expectations as a manager. At HomeAway, we believe that a manager goes through a metamorphosis of sorts as they transition from one role into the next. The first part of this metamorphosis is the change in identity from individual to ambassador. You must represent the organization, not just your personal point of view. The second is the way that you interact with your employees. You move from peer to boss. You must act as a team leader and not as a team member. The third is your agenda, that you transition from responder to planner. Managers must plan the team's agenda, not react to circumstances. And lastly, from an accountability perspective, you're moving from a player position to a conductor. Managers are responsible for the team's outcomes, not individual performance. Now let's go deeper into each 4 of these transitions. As you transition from an individual contributor to an ambassador for the team, the identity shift is very clear. When you're an individual on the team, you're free to voice your opinions, your work habits might be seen as idiosyncrasies, and you are able to react to situations, and those reactions are just observed by your colleagues. But when you move into an ambassador position, your opinions are often analyzed and taken as fact. As an example, from your staff's point of view, they may interpret your comment about budget cuts to think, does that comment mean our department is in trouble? Additionally, you set the standard for the team. So from a staff's point of view, they may see you checking your phone during a meeting and think, oh, well, if she does it, I guess it's okay for me to do it too. And lastly, your reactions take on significance because they are interpreted as fact. From a staff's point of view, you may completely change the deck that they had sent to you to review as a first draft without explaining why you made your changes. Let's say you had good reason to do this. Perhaps that presentation was going to a member of the leadership team, and at the last minute, they changed their requests or priorities for the data that was to be represented in the deck. Without wanting to trouble your direct report to make those changes late at night, you decided to do it on their behalf and then present that new content the next day. Now your direct report is sitting in that meeting with you, seeing an entirely different deck and presentation than what they had originally sent you, without the context behind the situation. They may see this and think, oh no, did I do that wrong? Is he disappointed in me? So what do we want you to do as you transition from individual to ambassador? It's easy. Put the organization ahead of self and act like an ambassador. Send the right messages with everything you do. Your comments, actions, and attitudes are taken seriously and cannot be ignored. Be factual and objective, exemplify the ideal, and embody the organization. Now let's move on to understanding how your interactions need to change as you transition from peer to boss. As a peer on a team, you can empathize and relate with difficulty and dissatisfaction. You may discuss with staff to create workarounds for problems, and you may criticize the organization, colleagues, and leaders. But when you're the boss, you need to correct underperformance and coach staff in the moment. You need to fix issues and create long-term solutions, and you must author and protect the team's narrative. Let's say that one of your direct reports has been falling behind on deadlines and mentions to you in a check-in that they don't think they'll be able to complete their current project on time. Your response should not be, No problem, I totally understand. How about we push to next week? I don't know why the leadership team sets such tight deadlines anyways. They should have known it was not possible with all of our other commitments. Instead, say something like, I understand where you're coming from, but it's important that we finish this on time. Let's walk through the roadblocks that you are currently facing and discuss what else you have on your plate. Then, I'll help you prioritize responsibilities so that I can get your commitment that this will be completed by the end of the week. Another example could be that your daily stand-ups or team meetings are starting 5 minutes late every morning because members of your team decide to work from home or arrive late to work consistently. To make up for the late start, the present members of the team jot down notes and send them out to the full group after the meeting wraps up. As a manager, you recognize your team's frustration in having to compile notes for the absent individuals and see that it takes valuable time away from their productivity. It's your responsibility to say, you know what? Let's create a process that solves this problem for good. How about we move the stand-up time to when we know we're all going to be in the office? What time can you all commit to being here in person? And lastly, perhaps you overhear two of your direct reports complaining about a new mentorship program that was launched by the Learning and Development team because they do not meet the minimum level requirements to apply. Instead of ignoring their comments, address their concerns directly by saying, I understand your frustrations on this one, but I know this is just a pilot program before the L&D team scales their efforts. Let's talk about what interests or skills you'd be interested in developing with a mentor, and I'll try to connect you with the right individual. So how do you nail this transition? Well, be friendly, but not a best friend. You now have a seat at the leadership table and benefit from the ability to be the decision maker and have greater access to information and resources than your team. I'm not telling you to stop being friends or taking a personal or social interest in your team. You spend hopefully no more than 40 hours with them each week, and we want you to get along well and be friends. Beginning in 2011, Google conducted a rigorous multi-year study to find out what makes the perfect team. It was called Project Aristotle, and during that time, researchers collected data from over 800 individuals in high-functioning teams and found that the keys to achieving a perfect team were actually not about having the best people, the best personality styles, the best work environment, or even the best relationships or sociability. Instead, what made these teams stand out were their active participation and psychological safety. As a manager, it is your job to cultivate and be an exemplar of active participation and maintain the psychological safety of the team. This means that you must maintain an objective perspective, avoid partiality, and ensure all members of your team have the opportunity to learn and grow while still meeting intrinsic emotional needs of acceptance, respect, and love. This can be challenging, I know, especially if you're coming from a position where you were once a peer and now you're managing these people. For people that you especially like, you need to not play favorites. Your staff will see it and it will create resentment and erode the perception of fairness that you want to convey. And for people that maybe you just don't like so much, you can't be a jerk or avoid them. They're on your team and must be treated as the others. The skill here is to separate the who from the do, the person from the performance. In this way, you neutralize your interactions with staff. We recommend that you connect to a new social group of peers at a similar level in the organization. Your team will need space to interact, process, and blow off steam without you. However, still ensure that you are accessible and connected to all staff and guard against any perception of favoritism. Now let's look at how your agenda might shift as you transition from an individual to a manager. When you're an individual contributor on the team, you are the benefactor or victim of your boss's plan, and you must carry out those instructions regardless. You must complete the assignments that are given to you, and you're expected to surface problems and communicate them to your boss. But when you are owning the narrative and the agenda for the team, as a manager, you need to actively set an agenda by putting daily tasks into the larger context This means taking the team's administrative, monotonous, or menial tasks and tying them back to the bigger picture, the greater value and impact, so that they remain engaged. You need to deploy staff against priorities, and you need to develop solutions to overcome obstacles and solve problems. As a manager, you're responsible for setting the strategic vision of the team and ensuring each individual has a clear understanding of how to get there. You're in the driver's seat. You get to fuel ambition and define the team's short and long-term goals. If you fail to communicate a compelling case for your agenda, your team will only half-heartedly execute on the plan. This is why it is crucial to communicate an inspirational future for the team, maintain a sense of current conditions based on data, and constantly scan for emerging threats or opportunities and design fallback options for situations where the original plan fails or priorities shift. Lastly, your accountability. The difference between a player or a musician's role and a conductor's role in an orchestra is that the player's purpose is to contribute to the orchestra's overall performance, whereas the conductor's purpose is to bring forth a masterful, powerful musical experience. A conductor's happiness does not come from only his own story and personal joy of the music. The joy is about enabling other people's stories to be heard at the same time. As a manager or conductor, you are responsible for creating music without making a sound, focusing simultaneously on the musicians and the vision while turning a multitude of contributions into a symphony. In order to elevate your team's work and create a succession plan in the process, you need to understand the intrinsic motivators and aspirations for each person on your team, what they value, and then actively seek opportunities to coach them towards success without simply giving it to them. You have to let your employees do their own work. You cannot do their job for them, even if it seems like it would be faster, easier, or better. You can accomplish much more by strategically organizing the efforts of the team than working as an individual. Taking on a leadership role for your team requires you to spend more time on the people management aspect of the role, which means you must give your staff the resources and autonomy to do their jobs effectively. To do this, provide clear direction by communicating expectations with the team and refocusing employees if they diverge. Increase your team's capacity by ensuring staff receive training and coaching to perform at higher levels, and orchestrate the group by constantly coordinating team effort and calibrating individual work to produce great results. We'll wrap up this section with a quote from Studs Terkel, a Pulitzer Prize-winning author, historian, actor, and broadcaster. Work is about a search for daily meaning as well as daily bread, for recognition as well as cash, for astonishment rather than torpor. In short, for a sort of life rather than a Monday through Friday sort of dying. As managers, you have the distinct privilege and arduous task of creating a team culture that is the arbiter of this experience. Thank you.